You were 8 years old when you first learned that love came with conditions. While other children played, you found yourself checking if mom had eaten, if dad needed help with bills, if your younger sibling had clean clothes for school. Picture this. It's a Tuesday evening, and instead of worrying about homework or cartoons, you're standing in the kitchen, small hands gripping the counter, calculating whether there's enough money for groceries this week. The weight of adult concerns settles on your small shoulders like an invisible backpack filled with stones you never asked to carry. You became the child who never asked for anything because asking felt selfish. Birthday wishes became afterthoughts. Your needs learned to whisper while everyone else's needs shouted. You mastered the art of becoming small, of taking up just enough space to be helpful, but never enough to be a burden. Everyone praised you for being so mature, so responsible, so wise beyond your years. Teachers called you old soul. Relatives marveled at how you could manage things other kids couldn't even comprehend. You wore these compliments like armor, not realizing they were also chains. But what they didn't see was the child inside you slowly disappearing, pixel by pixel, like a photograph left too long in sunlight. What they celebrated as maturity was actually childhood sacrificed at the altar of survival. But at what cost did this maturity come? What happens to a child who learns that their worth is measured not by who they are, but by what they can do for others? There's a name for what happened to you: parentification. This occurs when children are forced to take on adult roles and responsibilities, becoming the emotional or practical caregivers in situations where they should have been the ones being cared for. This isn't about being mature. This is about survival in a home where childhood wasn't safe, where being a child with all the mess and needs and demands that children naturally have felt dangerous. So you learned to become indispensable, to earn your place through usefulness rather than simply existing. You need to understand something crucial. Millions of adults carry this invisible wound. You're not broken. You're not strange. You adapted brilliantly to an impossible situation. But adaptation and healing are two different things entirely. Fast forward to today. That hyper-vigilant, hyper-responsible child has grown into an adult who struggles to delegate, who feels guilty taking sick days, who automatically says yes before even processing the request. You find yourself chronically overwhelmed, attracted to people who need fixing, carrying guilt like a familiar friend whenever you try to prioritize your own needs. You've become the friend everyone calls in crisis, the colleague who stays late, the partner who manages the emotional temperature of every room. The hyper-responsibility that once kept your family together is now suffocating your own life. Your nervous system still scans for problems to solve, crises to manage, people to rescue. Because somewhere deep inside, that 8-year-old still believes that if you stop being useful, you'll stop being lovable. The survival pattern that protected you then is now imprisoning the adult you've become. Then comes the moment. Maybe it's this morning, maybe it was months ago, when you wake up exhausted by everyone else's needs, realizing you've become a stranger to yourself. You look in the mirror and wonder, who am I when I'm not fixing, helping, managing, or carrying someone else's emotional weight? The recognition hits like cold water. The very thing that made you special as a child is now making you invisible as an adult. You've become so good at anticipating others' needs that you've forgotten you have any of your own. When was the last time someone took care of you? Not because you were sick or in crisis, but simply because you mattered. When did you last express a need without immediately minimizing it or apologizing for it? Healing begins when you stop seeing your needs as selfish and start seeing them as human. It starts with the radical understanding that you don't have to earn your place in this world through performance. Carl Jung wrote about individuation, the process of integrating all parts of ourselves, including the parts we've learned to hide. For you, this means reclaiming the child who was taught to disappear, the one who had needs and dreams and the right to take up space without justification. Here's your first step. Learn to notice when you're automatically saying yes. That pause, that tiny moment between the request and your response, is where your freedom begins. In that pause, you can ask yourself, am I saying yes because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? Remember this truth. Responsibility without choice is not virtue, it's trauma response. Real responsibility includes responsibility to yourself, to your own well-being, to the child inside you who never got to just be a child. You were never meant to carry the world on your shoulders. You were meant to be a child who felt safe enough to play, to make mistakes, to need things without shame. That child still lives inside you, waiting to be seen, waiting to be told that it's safe to have needs, safe to be imperfect, safe to be human. Your worth isn't measured by how much you do for others, but by the simple fact that you exist. You don't have to earn love through exhaustion. You don't have to prove your value through self-sacrifice. You matter, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You're not alone in learning to put down weights that were never yours to carry. Millions of us are learning to set boundaries, to say no, to ask for help, to believe that we deserve care not because we've earned it, but because we're human. The journey from hyper-responsibility to healthy responsibility is not about becoming selfish. It's about becoming whole. It's about honoring both your capacity to care for others and your right to be cared for. It's about understanding that the most responsible thing you can do is heal the parts of yourself that learned love was conditional. You've already taken the first step by recognizing the pattern. Trust yourself to take the next one. The world needs you whole, not exhausted. The world needs you authentic, not performative. The world needs you, all of you, including the parts that have needs, dreams, and the right to simply exist without having to justify that existence through service to others. Remember, healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you've always been beneath the armor of hyper-responsibility.